Okay, when we talk about climate change, we hear a lot about personal responsibility. Go green. But what if that's all wrong? Let's dive into this really provocative, business-centric argument from investor Vinod Khosla on how we could actually solve the climate crisis.
And this one idea? It's the whole key. It's about shifting away from what feels good and focusing on what actually works. It's about being brutally honest about the economics, the sheer scale of the problem, and what it's really going to take to make a difference globally.
Well, this might sting a little. From a purely pragmatic point of view, that hybrid you've got in your driveway, it might be more of a fashion statement than a real solution. And let me show you why.
This brings us to the first major point here, greenwashing. See, a lot of the most popular environmental actions are really more about making us feel virtuous than they are about having any kind of meaningful impact on the planet. A McKinsey study actually looked at the cost for every single ton of carbon removed for a bunch of different technologies. And would you look at where hybrids are? Way, way up there at $90 a ton. If you're just looking at cost-benefit, it's one of the most expensive and least efficient ways to spend money to cut emissions. I mean, the comparison here is pretty stark. Instead of spending an extra $5,000 on a Prius, you could have spent a few $100 on new lighting and actually saved more carbon. Or even better, just paint your roof white. That one simple thing can save around 10 tons of CO2, which is way, way more than a Prius saves in a year.
And this isn't just about cars. Take a look at the fuel cell buses they tried in Oakland. A normal diesel bus costs about $160 a mile to run. The hydrogen buses, over $5,000 a mile. Or how about putting solar panels in famously foggy San Francisco just for show? These are projects funded with other people's money, for political points, not for maximum impact.
Okay, so if Priuses and these flashy, expensive projects aren't the answer, then what is? Well, this gets us to the real climate problems, the huge industrial-scale challenges that actually move the needle.
So here's the crucial point. There are really only 4 problems that truly matter. If we solve these 4, replacing oil and coal, and totally reinventing how we make cement and steel, we pretty much solved climate change. And if we don't, well, all the light bulbs and reusable bags in the world just won't make a difference. And any solution for those 4 big problems, it has to pass a critical test, the Chindia test. Is the new technology cheaper than its fossil fuel competitor without any subsidies? Because if the answer is no, it's never going to be adopted at the scale we need in China and India. And that's where most future emissions are coming from. Price is everything. The scale here is just staggering. We're going to sell about 1 billion new cars in the next 15 years. For any solution to even be relevant, it has to target 80% of those cars, with an 80% reduction in carbon. So targeting a tiny little niche market like expensive hybrids is, well, it's fundamentally irrelevant to the problem. But wait, don't the experts have models for all of this stuff? Well, this is where the pragmatic approach gets really interesting. The argument is that trying to predict the future is basically a fool's errand, because the so-called experts, they're almost always wrong. I mean, just look at the track record for oil prices. For decades, experts made these big forecasts, and for decades, reality just went in a completely different direction. Time and time again, their predictions weren't just a little bit off, they were dramatically, fundamentally wrong. And this perfectly illustrates the core mistake. Back in the 1980s, McKinsey forecasted there'd be fewer than 1 million cell phones by the year 2000. The actual number? 109 million. You see, they based their forecast on the big, clunky, expensive phones of the 1980s. They completely failed to imagine the technological revolution that was right around the corner. So, if we can't predict the future, what do? We invent it. This is where we stop modeling and start hunting for what are called black swans, those total game-changing technological breakthroughs. A black swan is one of those rare, unpredictable events with a massive impact. Think about the internet or the personal computer. You can't predict them, but you can create the conditions for them to emerge. The strategy is actually pretty simple. You take as many shots on goal as possible, knowing that you only need a few to hit to completely change the game. So what do these shots on goal even look like? Well, what if instead of making something like ethanol, we could take biomass and produce actual bio-crude oil? Oil that you could pour directly into existing refineries. There's zero adoption risk, and a company like Exxon would much rather buy it from here than from some volatile foreign country. Now that's a black swan.
Or how about cement, one of our big four problems? A professor figured out that he could take the flue gas from a coal plant, bubble it through some water, and use a chemical process to create carbon-negative cement. Instead of polluting, coal plants would literally start cleaning the air, trapping carbon directly into our buildings.
And what about electric cars? Let's be honest. The current batteries just aren't cheap enough to win. But what if the new battery technology came along and delivered a 10 times breakthrough in both energy density and cost? All of a sudden, electric cars wouldn't just be an environmental choice, they'd be the undisputed economic winner everywhere on the planet.
And all of this, it leads to the ultimate conclusion. The goal isn't to build some small separate industry called clean tech. The real goal is to fundamentally reinvent the core technologies of our entire global economy. It's really about main tech.
Just look at this. Clean tech as some kind of a niche market, it's a tiny slice of the pie. The real opportunity, the 90% solution, is to replace the bulk of our main technologies, the engines, the fuels, the materials that our entire civilization is built on.
These are the markets we're talking about. These are multi-trillion-dollar global industries that are just ready for a complete remake. The economic driver to invent replacements for all of this stuff is absolutely massive. This is where the capital and innovation is going to be focused for the next decade.
You see, the future, from this pragmatic view, isn't about sacrifice and scarcity. It's about technological disruption, where the new solutions are just so much better on cost and on performance that the old fossil fuel economy simply can't keep up. And that leaves us with the final, crucial question, doesn't it? It's not about forecasting anymore. It's about creating. It shifts the entire conversation from what we all must give up to what we can build. So what should we invent first?